This is the plaintiff, Marshall. She says she purchased a puppy from the defendant, and it unfortunately died because the defendant had her take it home too soon. The puppy couldn't survive at 5 weeks away from its mother. She's not only heartbroken, she's out $1,070.50 and is suing for just that today. This is the defendant, Josh. He says the plaintiff didn't listen to him about what to feed the puppy. She fed her different foods and it unfortunately got sick and died. In no way, shape, or form is the puppy's death his fault, and he shouldn't have to pay anything because it's her fault the dog died. He's accused of letting a puppy leave its mommy too soon.
All parties, please raise your right hand. People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Leon is now presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
All right, Ms. Marchell, you're suing Mr. Josh for $1,070.50, a cost of a puppy, vet bills, and cremation bills that you sustained on a puppy that he sold to you. How did you first learn about the defendant's puppies?
Craigslist.
And he was selling a Shih Tzu?
Yes.
All right. And have you ever owned Shih Tzus before?
Yes, I currently have a 7-year-old Shih Tzu.
Okay. So you agree with him that you're going to pay $600 for the Shih Tzu, correct?
Yes.
And you pay a deposit, and then what happens?
So I paid the deposit about a week after they were born, which was June 7th, I believe. And then the pickup date was July 10th. So after having paid the deposit and maybe a few days or a week or so went by, I thought about the fact that July 10th would put the puppy only at 5 weeks old.
It wouldn't even put the puppy at 5 weeks. It would put the puppy at like 4.5 weeks, but go ahead.
Well, when I calculated, counted the days on the calendar, I came up with 5 weeks exactly. But
and you thought that was a little young to be leaving the mother?
Yes.
So what did you do?
Most breeders is usually 8 weeks. So right. I texted him and we had a conversation. We went back and forth on how, he knows his dogs. He's been doing this for a while. They'll be fine. And, I insisted that I've never gotten a puppy that young before. So yeah, standard is 8 weeks. The puppy has to be with their mother to finish nursing as well as socializing with the other puppies and their mother, learning how to play and things. When it came to that part, though, I have dogs of my own, multiple dogs. So because he insisted and I had already given a deposit, I'm like, well, as long as the puppy isn't nursing and they're fine, then I'll be fine with socializing because I have multiple dogs at home.
So you pick up the puppy and what happens?
Based on what he told me, she wasn't nursing anymore. She was eating softened puppy chow. He did not give me a portion of puppy chow to take home of what food that they were feeding, because even if I'm going to feed another type of puppy food, of hard food, and soften it the same way he was, you still have to wean a dog off of one food into another. And most breeders will give like a small sandwich bag or something of the type of food that they're feeding.
Well, did he tell you what type of food he was feeding her?
He did tell me. And so, yes, I could have bought a bag, but I didn't plan on feeding that same kind of food, after the fact.
Okay, so what food were you feeding her?
Well, I intended on giving her a raw diet, but I hadn't started that yet because she wouldn't even eat the softened Caesar dog food. The little Caesar square little containers of like 4 small dogs.
Okay.
It's soft food. She couldn't even pick that up, let alone pick up actual puppy chow. She had no teeth in her mouth. Okay.
So what'd you do?
Well, I figured because she was already so young and I had expressed to him that she should have still been at home, her behavior of, sleeping, drinking and pottying and stuff, and then going back to sleep again was pretty normal for such a young puppy. She behaved like a 5-week-old puppy until the 6th day that I had her. She was very lethargic.
And what'd you do that day?
I called my vet and I took her to my vet.
What did the vet say?
They believe she developed a GI tract infection from not being properly nursed. And her, she was so little that she couldn't fight the infection.
But what caused the infection? Do
not
they know or they don't know?
Nourishment in the body. No, they don't.
Let me hear from you, Mr. Josh. Why on earth are you sending a puppy to her at the 4.5 week mark?
Okay, when she came to me and left the deposit, it was 4 weeks. The puppy was 4 weeks old. Okay.
No, not when she came to you to leave the deposit. She left the deposit much earlier.
She left the deposit. It was 4 weeks old. The dogs were 4 weeks old. When she left the deposit, the dogs were 4 weeks old.
When was the dog born?
I can't remember that. I can't.
Well, that's kind of critical
It's
right
in my
now.
text.
Right.
The puppy's birth date is in the text
I do
messages.
I do have the pictures, and they are dated. But it was 4 weeks.
Right. The puppies were born on June.
Hold on.
The puppies. No, you hold on. The puppies were born on June 7th.
The puppy that day. She wanted to take the puppy that day.
That was not me. That was not me. There was another woman that was there that day.
Well, that's really weird because that's not what your text with her show.
Miss, hold on, miss.
First of all,
that was not me.
Take a deep breath. Don't talk to each other. Mr. Josh, don't call me miss. It's Judge. Now, wait a second. It's fine. Now, let me find the text. They were born on the 7th.
What day were they born?
So these are the series of text messages between you, Mr. Josh, and Ms. Marchell saying they were born on the 7th, and that is in June that we're talking. All right. And then they come home July 10th at 5 weeks, and you say, yes, it's only 4, though. And you say, it's not too early. It's from 3 to 6 weeks. She says, to my understanding, usually pups stay with mom until 8 weeks due to feeding and socialization. And then you show something you got online that says, what age can Shih Tzu puppies leave their mother? Which says weaning typically begins at around 3 to 5 weeks old and takes a few weeks to complete, okay? You say, my mom's been doing this for all my life and now I have started. The dogs are good to go as long as they're eating on their own and walking around mobile on their own. How long have you been in this business?
That was just the second litter.
Okay. Then everything hits the fan. She says to you on July 15th, what day was pickup? July what?
July 10th. Saturday, July 10th.
Is that accurate, Mr. Josh?
Yes.
Okay. I am messaging you to let you know that my puppy has not eaten since I brought her home. She would barely take the milk replacement and water and no food. She was very lethargic this morning and behaving weird, so I took her to the vet. Things are not looking good. I'm heartbroken. And he says to you, why haven't you called me first? You could have easily just brung her back here. So my question to you, Ms. Marchell, is why didn't you call him and brought her back there to her mother?
Well, because my first instinct, if something is wrong with the dog, is to call the vet. And when I did take her to the vet couldn't save her. So if the vet couldn't save her, what could he have done?
He personally, probably nothing. Maybe the mother could do something. And also then that begs the next question, which is, why didn't you take her to the vet when she wasn't eating? That question needs to be asked.
Because she was so young, I didn't expect her to be eating that food anyways. Once I got her and I realized like a day or two later she had no teeth, I started feeding her soft food. I've been giving her the milk replacement.
But she wouldn't eat your soft
puppy milk
food. So why didn't you just buy the puppy chow that he had told you to buy and wet it like he told you to wet it?
Well, because if she couldn't pick up soft food, already actual softened food with no teeth, how could she have eaten the puppy chow with no teeth?
I don't know. Maybe she just liked it better.
I mean, I'm saying that was my thought.
No, but what I'm saying is maybe she'd be more likely to eat something she was used to eating.
Understandable, but I also didn't believe that she was eeting that already.
You think he was lying about whether the dog was ready to go?
Absolutely.
All right, let me hear from you, Mr. Josh. Go ahead. You wanted to say something.
She was begging for the dog. I want the dog. I got dog powdered milk, she said, and she has raw food diet. She wanted to change the dog on a raw food diet.
I read the text and I don't see any of that. Do you have texts that say that?
No, it wasn't no text. I'm talking about when she came over and said that.
Okay.
She came over.
All right.
She came over and physically said that. I said, keep the dog on the puppy chow, wet the puppy chow, because that's the only thing the dog is licking up. Okay. When she left, she didn't call me for 6 days. And I asked her, what about the 3rd day? What about the 4th day? And you didn't start the raw puppy food diet, which that's what the dog died from, a change in.
Well, you don't know that. She says that she didn't, that she was
That's what the vet said.
The vet said that the dog died from a raw diet?
No, a change in the dog's diet.
No, she didn't.
Okay, I'm going to look at the vet's records to see what the vet says as opposed to you saying what the vet says. So give me one moment. Okay, in these notes it says breeder was already feeding hard puppy chow. So tell me about that, Ms. Marchell.
All of these notes are just based on what I told her. So I told her that was what the breeder said and that was what she wrote down.
Okay, so when he says he told you to wet the puppy chow, had he told you to wet puppy chow?
He just said watered down puppy chow.
Watered down puppy chow.
And while we were having the conversation when I was at the vet, he sent me a picture of what the watered down puppy chow looked like. While I was at the vet.
By then it's too late.
Right, exactly.
You know, the discussion has to take place beforehand. I'm a little miffed that he tells you, you know, buy puppy chow, and you say, well, I'm not going to be using it later, so I'm not going to buy it now. And then you're trying to feed her something that she's not eating, and that happens for 4 days, you know, before saying, well, she's got to eat, and 4 days are passing, you know. But I don't know why you're nodding, because I'm really miffed at you, Mr. Josh, for, you know, sending a puppy away at less than 5 weeks. That seems really, really early to me. And I think you even recognize that, because you started feeling awful in the text and saying, I will never do this again. I let her go too early. You said that in the text, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I am reading here. Do you see this where it says giving milk replacer, Caesar puppy, and small amount of raw diet, Ms. Marchell?
Yes.
Right.
Which means that you said, well, then where did they get the raw diet part? That's not normal. It's like a thing that if you're wanting to give a raw diet, how would the vet know that you had ever said you were going to give a raw diet? It says here, small amount of raw diet. That's what this says.
I expressed to her that I had planned on feeding her a raw diet once she was
Are these the vet notes you want me to rule on, or do you have other vet notes?
She wouldn't send me anything else. And I explained to her that those notes were not really explanatory enough, because nothing actually says all of what happened. It's just kind of a step-by-step of the day. There's no conclusion you can necessarily draw from the notes that she made.
That's kind of important, though, right?
I understand that.
So let me ask you, what was when you were there and the dog stop talking over me. When you were there and the dog passes away, what did they tell you is the reason the dog passed away, according to you?
They said she had a GI tract infection that was caused from not being properly nursed.
Meaning?
Like not being nursed by her mother long enough.
Long enough? Okay. This says viral something dietary indiscretion, reported attempts to feed raw diet. He's right.
She didn't eat any raw diet. I told you I planned on feeding her a raw diet. She never ate any of it.
And powdered milk.
Stop talking. There's no pending question. The vet does say that the puppy is too young and too small to be left without constant feeding, Mr. Josh, which means that the puppy shouldn't be leaving its mother, because the only source of constant feeding is someone 24/7 with lactation, okay? Or someone who just skips their job for a whole week and is feeding them. Do you hear me? I mean, that the vet does say that. Now go ahead and respond to that.
What am I getting sued for again?
The cost of the puppy that died, because she says it died because of you. The vet bill, which was $379, and the cremation bill, which was $91.80. Go ahead and ask your next question. Go ahead.
It wasn't, I'm not asking you what I was getting for. It was, what was the purpose of me being drug in the court? Was for not nutriting the dog? It wasn't in my custody.
No, it's for getting rid of the dog too fast, for trying to make the dog someone else's responsibility too quickly, for not being responsible and allowing the dog to wean off its mother naturally. Her accusation is that the dog wasn't weaned. You negligently did that as someone who's in the business of selling puppies. You did it in a way that killed the dog. I guess that's it. That's what she's saying.
The dog was licking up the puppy chow. I would have never called her. The dog was licking up the puppy chow, and she told me she was changing the dog's diet to a raw diet, and then the vet says raw diet there.
Why would the vet twice say that you were feeding the dog raw food if you never told the vet that you were feeding the dog a little amount of raw food? Yeah, I mean, that could have been salmonella.
It says attempted because my intention was to feed her raw food.
But why was can I just ask you something? Honest to God, because it's very plain to me that literally you both killed this puppy. You by taking the puppy away from its mother too early, and you by trying to feed the dog raw food because you don't want to spend the money for puppy chow, which he had said, wet the puppy chow. What is the problem? If the dog isn't eating in 4 days, then why wouldn't you just go out and buy the puppy chow? I'd be panicking that the dog wasn't eating in 4 days. It's not like you're new to dog ownership. You know the dog's not eating, and not a phone call to, hey, I think this was too soon. Let me bring the dog back till the dog is back in the warmth of its mommy and with a constant feeding source, which is what a dog of this age needs. And you, if your mother has been doing this for her entire life, and you are now doing it. How is it that you ship off the dog this early? For the love of all that's holy, it's both your faults. $1,070.50. I'm ordering each of you to eat half of it, which means that the defendant owes the plaintiff half of that, which is $535.25.
Wow.
Well, a very interesting outcome here. Both parties are said to be guilty by the judge, and the defendant has to pay the plaintiff half of what the plaintiff was seeking, just over $500. I'm sorry about the puppy. Are you going to get another puppy now?
Probably not. I have multiple dogs already. My boyfriend has a dog.
You think you made a huge mistake in taking the dog? That partially you were responsible for taking the dog at 5 weeks of age?
Absolutely. But I had already given a deposit, and a lot of the times when people, request deposits, is to hold the puppy and they won't refund it.
All right. Well, I'm sorry, but that's the judge's verdict. You got to live with it. Josh, let me ask you a question. There's one thing that hasn't been mentioned here at all. How did the other pups in the litter do?
I got pictures from people every week. I got one lady, she sends me pictures of her dogs. They're perfect. They're perfectly fine because they listened to me and did the puppy chow.
And I presume you've learned something from this. Am I right?
I learned it when she sent me the pictures of the dead dog. I was so distraught. Like, this is 6 days later. You didn't contact me. Even a fish needs more than water in 6 days.
All right. Well, that'll bring this, what really is a very sad case, to a close.
So, Doug, this is really a case where both parties are at fault. The defendant sold the puppy too early, and the plaintiff fed the dog improperly. That's why the judge is looking at the contract and saying, since both are at fault, dividing it down the middle, the plaintiff gets half the damages.
My hubby and I watch every day, and we're wondering, what kind of cars do you guys drive? Boxers and briefs.
Okay. A tough question, but a fair one. Let me think about this for a second. It's not really fair because I'm a car guy and you're
not a car guy.
Less about
I am
cars,
not a car
right?
guy. That is a means of transportation.
I just smother myself in them, and you just use them to get from point A to point B. You marry your cars. Yes. I do change out cars every now and then, but not you. I can't pry you away from
We don't
a
have
car.
the parking spaces for...
Well, you're driving a 5-year-old Mercedes.
I drive a 5-year-old Mercedes. There's nothing wrong with it. I love that car, and I'm going to drive it till it dies.